So, and I'm going to go live over here. Just takes a second. There's a bit of a lag. And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Employee to Entrepreneur Society. I am your host, Kim Speed, and I am a brand visibility expert, brand builder. I am a speaker, an author, and I am an entrepreneur just like you. And that's why every week I love bringing on a fellow entrepreneur to hear their story, to be inspired and motivated. And each week, I always learn something personally, and I hope that you do as well. And I know this week you're going to learn something because I have a fascinating guest. Today, I have with me Alan Stevens, who is an internationally recognized profiling and communication specialist, creator of Rapid Trait Profiling, and founder of the Campfire Project. Alan teaches people how to read personalities through facial features, verify emotions through micro expressions, and confirm truthfulness via body language. So interesting. With clients ranging from Disney films and Gillette to Australian law enforcement and educators, Alan helps individuals and organizations build stronger, more authentic relationships. He's a multi award finalist and best selling author, regularly featured on national TV and media. Alan is also director of the Business of Smiles charity and Central Coast Montessori Primary School, driven by a mission to create lasting impact. Alan, thank you so much for joining us today. This is going to be so much fun. Ah, welcome.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to it because, as you've told me, your audience are entrepreneurs, who are people who transition from other jobs to new jobs, etc. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. It'll be a lot of fun.
This is amazing. So let's start in the beginning first. How the heck did you get into this?
Well, funny enough, I was dreadful at reading people. I was dreadful at relationships, etc. I'd been through two divorces. I had a lot of broken relationships. I even had business partners who managed to empty the bank out without me knowing. So finding the wrong people to go into business with. And it was after my second divorce, I'd decided I really needed to get things right. Because I spent the first 50 years of my life chasing relationships for myself, and it was a disaster. But over the last almost 2.5 decades now, I've been focusing on helping other people build their relationships. Because as I've started learning how to read people properly, I realized that the way to build relationships is through communication. And while you're trying to build the relationship for yourself, if you do it the right way and you work with the other person, you'll always succeed in building a strong relationship because your focus goes on to them, no longer on you. And that's where it all started changing for me. I had been working with body language back in the 1970s when I was put in charge of men who were all older than me. I was 23, my second in charge was 38. One of the other men on my team had been my senior officer when I was living in Sydney. But when I moved to Newcastle, where this all happened, he was now on my staff. And then in
Ah,
the 80s, I got involved with Myers-Briggs and disc profiling and did a lot of work around that area. And then in the 90s, got involved with NLP. So learning how to, linguistic programming, understanding the words and how to try and steer conversations. But I found that a little bit manipulative at the time, the way it was presented to us. And in the early 2000s, that's when after my second divorce, that's when I realized I needed to do things differently. But I also realized that Myers-Briggs and Disc weren't doing the job for me because when I had a look at, there was a company that taught currency trading and they brought me in to find out why none of their students ever made any money. And so we used Disc profiling, Myers-Briggs profiling to get an idea of their personalities. But when they went live trading and put their money on the table,
yeah.
they were still losing money and their personalities just weren't the same. So we knew
Oh,
that when you self-report, you're always thinking about what's the other person asking here? How do I want to look? And some of the guys, when I spoke to them, they said, well, we tried to second guess what type of personality we had to have to be a good trader. And I'm going, no, when you're stressed, no matter how much you practice something else, you're always going to revert back to your own. And that's the one we needed. And another friend was running a spiritual retreat. We decided to do a Myers-Briggs workshop with playing around with the dichotomies and getting people to get to understand each other better. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, somebody just walked up to me and he said, "You ever looked at reading faces?" Now, I'm a curious sort of character. There's a coach over there in the US, John Wooden, who had said the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything. So that's what I've lived by.
I love that. Say
Yeah,
that one more time. That's awesome.
yeah. And it's true because if you think you know everything, everybody
Yeah.
else is still learning. It's going to pass you by very quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to always have that open mind. And Bruce Lee had also said, what you do is you take everything, you listen to everybody, you hold on to what works for you drop out what doesn't, and you add your own flavor to it. And that's what it
Mm,
all came down to. I looked at it and went, right, body language, fantastic. NLP, using it the right way, fantastic. Micro expressions, fantastic. But the facial features, I looked at and thought, well, that's fantastic as well, but nobody on the planet seems to be putting them all together. And
right.
so I thought, right, I needed to understand more about the facial features. So, because every psychologist you ask, talk to, they'll say, oh, is this phrenology? Is that bumps on the head? Well, that was about character, not
That's
about
exactly
personality.
what I thought when you first told me. I thought it was like, you feel.
Well, back in the days when our cars weren't all computerized and everything else, and there was plenty of space around the engine and under the car. If I used to work on my cars, I guarantee every time I came out from under the car, I had an extra bump on my head. I didn't turn into a serial killer. I might have been swearing a little bit at myself, and the air might have been a bit blue, but I didn't go and kill anyone.
Right,
So
right.
that's all rubbish. They've debunked it a long time ago. But the facial features, when you think everything you feel inside, we express outwardly. At the same time, if we think and concentrate in a certain way, because I remember when I was growing up, my mother used to come past when I was doing things. She'd look at me and she'd, oh, if the wind changes, that face is going to stay. Because I'd be crunching it up like this. This was trying to get me to be more conscious of my facial expressions. But you can't control them. That's the whole thing. So I then realized that when you think in a certain way, you're going to pull the same expression over and over. And therefore, the muscles that you're working all the time will create ridges and crevices. There's your nurture traits, the ones that we develop in response to our environment. But we also have our nurture traits, which are passed down from our parents. So recently, I've thought I need a bit more backup on this. And so I went searching for all the sciences that support the facial features, over 9 of them. Neuroscience, there's neurobiology, there's a whole mass of different research. And so I thought, fantastic. And now it's just been recognized that rapid trait profiling, outside of the psychologist Big Five, which is used by the initials OCEAN, which I think is openness to experience, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neurosism. Those are the big five. Outside of that one, which is scientifically proven, rapid trait profiling now is the only scientifically proven program. And it's one that
Really?
will work with everybody. So if you look at DISC and Myers-Briggs, they're self-reporting. So straight away, you're at a disadvantage. You profile somebody in the workplace. They may operate completely differently at home. They might be
Right.
dominant and aggressive at work, but at home they're submissive. And the reason
Mm,
they're dominant at work is because they're submissive at home. And we know that anybody who's pressured in any one location will then want to behave something differently in another. So, like bullies are usually were bullied when they were younger, and they become bullies.
yeah, that
And
makes
that's what
sense.
happens. What happens with all this profiling. So I realized that we needed something that was more scientifically based. So, and even when it comes to the big five, there is some self-reporting in there. So the people who usually use the big five, are your psychologists,
Right.
forensic psychologists, etc. Those in the therapy fields, etc. But everybody can use rapid trait profiling. Doesn't matter who you are, even children.
Everybody?
Everybody,
So people
because
can
you
learn
need,
this.
yes. And that's what I'm set out to do now, is to create and train my competition. We need more people
Wow.
doing it, but they've got to be doing it right. And that's not me being altruistic or anything else. It's me being in survival mode. We've seen what's happened to coaching. A lot of people have gone into the coaching field, especially in life coaching. And how many of them have really gone through their own stuff before they go out and try and coach other people. We've got some fantastic coaches out there, but they're struggling because of the reputation. The ones that are just emerging or trying to get into the field have damaged the reputation. I can't
Mm.
afford that to happen to what I'm doing. This is 2.5 decades I've been working on this. And so now it's a
Wow.
case of making sure that the people who take it on do it really well. But I want to train those people who will then go out and train other people who will also go out and train other people. I want to train the trainers of the trainers.
Right.
And
So
in doing,
I need to step back just for a second. And so you created rapid trait profiling,
Mhm.
which works along with the self profiling things like DISC and M.
You
Um,
can use those things. Yeah, you can use, if you're applying for a job and there's 1,000 people applying for the job, the last thing the people who have organised it want to do is sit down and read all the faces. So you'll use online systems, DISC and Myers-Briggs and other things like that. They're written into those programs, into the applications, and they cull the numbers. Yes, you're going to cull a couple of people who might be brilliant at the job, but the chances are you won't cull a lot of them. There'll be some of them there. When you bring them into the interview, that's when you use my skills to make sure that you've got them right, that what they've written in their resume is them. And in fact, I
right,
know there's some programs out at the moment who, like AI, that are looking at your LinkedIn profiles and working out your profile, into the area of DISC, Myers Briggs, and Enneagrams.
right.
Depends on who wrote your profile. It depends on who. If you wrote it yourself, who did you write it for? Did you write it telling people who you were, or trying for the people that you want to come in to be your clients?
Mhm. And do
So
they
they're
know
missing the
that?
mark all the time.
I was going to say, and do they know what they need?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. Uh, I've got a warped sense of humour. I'm also very irreverent. There's one on the internet called Crystal Knows, and I always say they left a word off the end, which is Crystal doesn't know or knows
Mm,
nothing,
mm,
because you're reading all that and it doesn't. They don't know that it was your personality. It's just what's on your profile. And this is where people are making the mistake then. And they go, well, I've just tried to talk to this person and didn't connect with them. There's something wrong with me.
right.
There's nothing wrong with them. And this is the whole thing, that there's nothing wrong with anybody, really. If you understand the other one's personality and you talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to, you'll always make a connection. So if I look at somebody, excuse me, I know that you're on the analytical side. You need the information before you make a decision. So if I
Me?
come along, yeah, and if I just come along, just compared to the rest of the world,
Okay.
I look at where you are on the world scale. You have what I see as an analytical trait. You need a certain amount of information before you make a decision. But there'll be other people who just want the overview, the least amount of information. If you start talking to them and you tell them the information that you need to receive, that's why we talk to other people. We talk to others the same way that we want to be
Right.
spoken to.
That makes complete sense.
The end result is everything's going fine. And to the people who are listening to this, ask yourself, have you ever spoken to somebody? Everything's been going a lot, you've been talking to them, everything seems to be going fine. It looks like they're ready to buy and everything else. And all of a sudden they switch off.
Yeah.
They're the people who just wanted the overview. You're giving them too much information, and all they
Right.
now want, all they're saying yes, 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 all the way through. It'll be a counterfeit yes. They just want you to shut up and move on. So they'll say yes to move on.
Interesting. Interesting.
So you've got, well, when it comes to yeses, you've got counterfeit yeses. You've got interesting yeses where they're interested in what you're talking about, but then you have the confirmation one. But most of the time, people say, oh, I had a great presentation. Everybody loved it and everything else. And they find that the follow up later on is crickets. There's no
Yeah.
response from anybody. That's
Right.
because all the yeses were counterfeit.
That's fascinating. So this rapid trait profiling can help with that type of thing.
That's right, because when you're getting those yeses, you're watching the body language, you're looking at the expressions. And if things aren't lining up, you know that they're fake yeses. And that's the thing about it. See, communications, they talk about the words being worth 7%, the tone of voice being 38, and the body language being 55. Well, when you break it down, every part, they say, oh, therefore the non-verbals are more important. The non-verbals give you more information, but you have to have the words as well. Communication has to be the 100%. Because if I'm moving around and I'm
Mhm.
nodding and everything else and I'm grunting and all the rest of it, can you understand what I'm talking about? No, because there's no words there. So the words are equally important to all the other parts. This is where people got confused with this. When they first did that testing, they said 7, 38, and 55%. Everyone went, right, okay, this is it. And everybody else got upset about the words. We're saying nobody's looking at the words. And so it was this or that. No, it's a combination of everything. It's like your personality is nature and nurture. One doesn't work without the other. If you're looking at
Mm,
the a physical world and a spiritual world, they work together. You can't have one without the other. This is where
mm.
people go into it and segregate it. And that's why I go the other way. I bring as much as I can in from all different fields to understand the whole picture. That's when you get into something that's more holistic. And
Wow.
so that's why I realized that the rapid trait profiling, well, expressions, for instance, fear and surprise, eyebrows go up. When
Yeah.
they go up, you've got that larger gap between the eye and the eyebrow.
Right.
And so the end result is that people that that there's fear and surprise. But if you've got somebody who's got high set eyebrows, you look at them and they don't look as friendly.
Are you always surprised?
Yeah. If you're going around like that all the time, but some
Yeah.
people look like they've got that expression on their face, and people look at them and go, oh, they're not as friendly. The truth is that, well, every trait we have has an upside and a downside. Their high set eyebrows are because they are more discerning. They want to check out who's safe to be around before they talk to anybody. Once they've recognized who's safe to be around, they're as friendly as anybody else. They'll come closer. But they like that little bit of space to start with. It's the
Hmm.
same thing when the eyebrows go up on somebody. We pull back and they pull back. So the two areas started to correlate and work together. And I thought, why haven't the psychologists got onto the facial features? And the people who were teaching the facial features, why haven't they got onto the micro expressions?
Hmm.
And I went,
Yeah.
put them together. But you also then got the language that goes with it. So taking the NLP and refining that, working about how to get yeses and how to get the yeses in the right way. But if you're going to do a negotiation, you've got to get a no first. When a person says no, you get into a conversation. And when you're into a conversation, now they're engaged.
Yeah.
This is how you also get away from some of the counterfeit yeses. You make a statement that you know is they're going to say, no, that's not right. Oh, well, please explain. Now they're talking to you. And once people start talking, they come into it because they're engaged with it, because it's coming from them.
Right.
Because one of
So
the
you
biggest,
having the engagement is really helpful.
that's it. And so you can see how now the words then, as you work, it will trigger somebody, the body language, the expressions will now start to tell you exactly where they're at. So you can come back and modify the words. And
So
so you
you
can steer
can
it where
do it like instead of doing the same thing again and having the same result, you can figure out how to make the changes.
that's
That's
it.
brilliant. That's brilliant.
See, I also know you've got a dry wit. So I know any conversation I have with you is going to be, you need to go throw it, you're going to be able to throw it back at me. Other people, they're very fussy and they'll take the opposite trait and will take it very personally. So if I know that's the case, I might be, talking to one person quite flippantly and everything else. With this person, I'll change the way I'm talking to them. So I don't trigger their downside of their traits. Knowing the downside of your traits is really important. And by the way, I've got some doozies. If you look at
I'm
my
starting to
background,
think I do too now.
yeah, yeah, but they're also on the upside. They're fantastic. See, I've got critical perception, which means you put a document in front of me, I'll find the errors. You've got any double spacing, got letters out of them, mix the letters up or anything like that, I'll find it. They put up on Facebook a whole bunch of little diamonds on a sheet, a little question mark in it. And they go, if I find the error, bang, I've got it like that. However, that particular trait, it's a killer in relationships because anything that's not tangible, I can assume there's something might be going on. And because of some of my other traits, being aesthetic appreciation, I feel things inside, I work things out, I go quietly and pull away. Next thing you know, I've gone quiet. People want to know what's going on. I'm dwelling on the issue that's come up in my head and I've created a problem. Hey, I've been through
Oh,
2 divorces and a lot of broken relationships. I
no.
think I might have had a part in all of that. Yeah.
No.
So when it comes down to, I realize then that knowing the downside of my traits, if I don't know them, a lot of people are fearful because we know that everybody has suffered and feeling insecure. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody pretends they're not wearing a mask. And we are a combination of how we've decided to respond to all the events in our life. So when you realize that, we're all carrying stuff. So
Right.
everybody's worried. As soon as I say there's downside to their traits, they panic. And I
Yeah.
go, no,
Well, I
if
just
you know
did.
that, yeah, if you know the downside of your traits, instead of them controlling you, you have dominion over them. So if I'm talking to somebody and that little trait starts to get triggered, my first question is before I would go, oh, what's wrong with them? I now go, is this them or is it me? And I'm hoping it's me because if it's me, I can control it. Then I go, okay, that's me. Let's get on with the relationship. If it is them,
Right.
now I'm pretty sure that, and I've got it right, that's somebody I should get away from then.
Right.
So it makes things a lot more professional. It means that I don't make judgmental calls on people, which most of us do all the time, when I did before I had these skills, but you make a valid judgment and you're treating that person with far more respect.
I
And
feel
so
like this sounds fascinating to be able to do, but it sounds like it's hard to learn.
I'll tell you what, my youngest student was my 11-year-old granddaughter at the time. What happened? She was her father's a federal policeman, and he had one of his manuals sitting on the table. And he rang me one day, and he said, "Look, we can't watch Netflix anymore." And I knew they were in a country area in New South Wales, Australia, and the reception was poor. And I thought, righty, was your internet finally broken down? He said, "No." He said, "Every time we sit down to watch a movie, Jess is sitting there with us, and she starts profiling the actors and won't shut up. She's talking all the way through the movie." I went, okay. So I dropped down and saw him and I asked her, I said, do you want to learn this? She said, yes. So I gave her her own manual and a master manual. And it arrived on, I actually posted it down to her and it arrived on the Thursday and they were flying out the following day for Helsinki to see her other grandparents. And I thought, 11 years old, away for several weeks, novelty will wear off. Phone call from her father when they got to Finland to say that just wanted to let you know she didn't watch any movies on the flight going over. All she did was read through the manual. And when she wasn't doing that, she was walking around the plane profiling all the passengers. Just call me Dr. Frankenstein. I created another
Oh
monster.
no. Oh no. Oh no.
So by the
I
time she
wouldn't want
got
to be
back,
her parents.
yeah, well, her father's done my courses as well. So,
Oh,
she, but now they're talking about it, they're connecting with that level. So the conversations between them have come even stronger and more relevant to her,
right.
where she's heading into all of her issues. She knows how to talk to them and everything. She even at school taught the teachers how to teach her because some of her traits, she's a sequential learner, things that are in a structured order. And if you've got an objective thinking teacher, they bounce all over the place. So for a kid who's got sequential thinking, the end result is that teachers, and they understand it, all of a sudden the teacher goes off on something else. There's a chasm. There's no connection because sequential thinkers learn the first bit, learn the second bit, bolt those together, understand that, go to the third bit, bring it all together, keep doing that and building it. They're the ones who study all the way through the year. They don't have to study because they're really studying as they're working. They're learning and bolting everything together. If there's a chasm, they're waiting for that connection again. The teacher can go on. Now you've got this child who feels that they're dumb because the other kids who are the objective thinkers are getting it. Then there's a couple of traits that they will have and things like easily distracted and also finding it difficult to sit still because it's a physical condition. People with
Right.
very short legs find it hard to sit for long periods of time. People like me with long legs and long arms and shorter upper body, on the surf club, I had to get my wetsuits specially made. They were a bigger size for the length of the legs and a smaller size for the upper body, and they had to bolt them together. Yeah. With the arms I've got, I'm built like an orangutan. So,
That must say something about you.
yeah. So I'm a hugger. Arms will go right around. But the whole thing is that with that, once you understand that those three traits in particular, a lot of the kids that have got the labeling with ADHD have those traits and they don't have ADHD. The education system, the way the classrooms run, is the problem. It's not the kids and it's not the teachers, it's the system.
Wow.
And so when you start looking at this, is another reason why I really wanted to get into this because I've profiled children, for almost 2 decades. One of the boys I profiled was 6 years old at the time. He has Asperger's. School didn't want him. After school's care didn't want him. So I had a look and I went, okay, got him. I asked his mother, will he sit still for me? And she said, no. I said, well, right, I want you to, I'm looking at his facial features. They don't change overnight. So I want you, get him to the neutral face expressions. Give me 5 photographs. And I told her how I wanted the photos taken. When the photos came through, he was in different outfits. Even she couldn't get him to sit still for that long. The
Oh,
school didn't
wow.
want him. The after schools care didn't want him. And the psychologist said he needed a carer for the rest of his life. Anyway, I profiled and gave her a written report. She understood it all. And then she went to the school and she was smart enough to play the school teachers against the after schools care, telling each of them the others were doing it. And if they didn't do it, it would fail and they'd be on their head. None of them wanted to be held responsible. They put it in place. It was simple things. A year later, he was doing presentations in front of the class. Another year later, they let the psychologist go with the doctor's approval. Medication was off the table. She's been doing testimonials for me all the way through since then. And I had been boasting that I had profiled, actually, she's been doing testimonials for me now for 13 years. When she saw the post, she sent me a text, and then I saw her on the weekend at another event. And she reminded me again. She said, Alan, you cannot tell time. I said, why? She said, he's not 19 anymore, he's 21. And so she's been doing testimonials for 15 years, and she's been doing those because the things that she learned on the way through, the way he grew and the connection they had and everything else. He's now not. He's now 21. He's living in Queensland on his own. He's got his own place. He's got a girlfriend, and he's now an assistant manager in a nightclub. So much for the psychologist who said he'd need a carer for the rest of his life.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So, see,
That
all of mine.
that is why
Yeah,
you're so passionate about helping students then.
exactly. See, if
I
we help the
mean,
children, look, a newborn child, for instance, there's certain traits we can see in their face. One's in the DNA that were passed down from their parents. They give us an idea, well, something, things like a music trait. I can tell you where they're going to be able to sit still. I can tell you what sort of sports will probably suit them as they're growing up, especially as toddlers. Before they get to school, we know what type of school will suit their personalities. When they're in school, we work out, well, what things, where are their strengths in their personality? Therefore, what jobs will they connect to? So now we can give them some direction to find the right studies for the right career. So they don't go
mm,
off to university. How many people do you know have got 1 or 2 degrees and don't use them?
yeah,
It's ridiculous. And I don't know what it's like in other countries, but we have our HECS debt here, is higher education costs. And in that, we've got people with 30, 40, $100,000 debts before they even
yeah,
start a job.
yeah,
That that's criminal, especially when we've got companies that are like oil companies that don't pay tax, but our kids are paying a fortune to get an education. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
And so the end result, they go and get those multiple careers, they go and try those jobs, don't like those jobs, and they've wasted all that time. But now they've got this debt they've got to pay back. So when they do make money in the job that's got nothing to do with their education, they're paying off the education debt. Well, this way we can prevent that. They go into a career that they love, they enjoy it, they're more productive. The company makes more money because we know if people are unhappy, especially with psychosocial safety and bullying and other things that are going on, there's a lot of productivity, a lot of money, billions of dollars in Australia alone, and we're in a small country, being lost every year through those things. So if you're
Mm,
happy in your work, the company makes more money. This is why it's essential for anybody who owns a business to be looking at this. They're throwing money away if they don't. Then that person is happy, they go home. There's less likelihood of fighting with their spouse, less
mm.
domestic violence, less anger with their kids. The kids grow up happier. You see, it doesn't matter where this gets inserted in the sphere of life, everybody gains from it.
And
This
I'm
is
just
why I have to get
thinking,
it out to other people.
and I'm just thinking too, Alan, like for entrepreneurs and their clients to be able to give them an experience where they're actually, getting the most out of it, that's where I can see it being really helpful for an entrepreneur. Like,
Exactly.
because not everybody's gonna, you know, take it in the same or be able to execute it the same. I'm seeing this as like, oh my gosh, this is so important.
See, I can even use this from stage with hundreds of people in the audience. I'll be looking around and talking to people. I always tell them, well, first of all, when they usually introduce me and I walk on stage, I'll be very quiet at first. I'll walk across the room and everyone's starting to worry at that point because I'm looking at everyone. And then
I
I'll
know.
ask
It's like,
everybody,
oh.
You got to set the stage. And I'll ask everybody, who here has ever wanted to read minds? And a few hands will go up, and they'll go, and who here would want to know what their spouse is thinking? All the rest of the hands go up, and I go, well, so would I. Nobody can do that, but I'm here to teach you the next best thing. And that's how I usually start off. Then I go into the conversation, and I'll see people in the audience, and I'll go, okay. And I'll talk about different traits. I warn them in advance. I say, look, if I'm looking at you quite intently, the trait I'm talking about, you have. So I'm educating each person to understand a bit about themselves. And then I'll ask somebody to come on stage. So like somebody who's got those higher set eyebrows. And as they're coming on stage, I'll ask them, first of all, as you're coming up towards me, stop where you feel comfortable. I'm going to stop here and you come to me. And I'll put my hand out and they'll stop. And they usually stand a distance back from me. So while I'm talking there and still facing them, I'll take a little step forward. And quite often they'll move back a little bit. And I'll then turn around. Once I've got that set up, I'll turn around, look at the audience. And as I'm talking to the audience, I'll move towards them. And they will move across the stage. I'll step forward towards the audience, and I'll step back again on the other side of it, and I'll walk them back again. The audience is usually giggling at this, watching this person walk across the stage. They know
Because
what's
they
going
don't
on.
even realize it.
They don't realize it. But in that, I'll then look at their traits, and I talk about their traits and show them how to connect with them. So if I've got somebody who I can see is very analytical, and I've got somebody who is very much big picture, I will look at them, and the person who's big picture, I'll say to them, look, there is a lot of information here, but I'm just going to talk about the overview, give you an overview pitch, and you can see them sort of relax straight away. And I can see the one who's more analytical, and I'll turn around and say, but there is, as I said, there is a lot of stuff. We're going to let you ask all the questions that you want to ask. And by the way, other people get what they need, but if you need some more at the end of this, come and see me off stage. So I'm setting up, you can see everybody then getting more engrossed in it. So you can do that from stage. If you've got two people together, and I was doing a workshop for 50 dentists. They were being trained by another dentist who runs his own business. He's a coach, and he trains them on building their businesses. And these two dentists had brought their 2-year-old son along with them. And it was a day workshop. And through the workshop, they kept on asking me, would I profile their son? And I went, yes, I'll do it. But at the end of the day, on stage, as a demonstration for everyone, because they both wanted to know how to talk to him in a way that they could both connect with him, because they weren't connecting equally well. So I showed them how to talk to their son in a particular way, but each had to change differently to be able to do that. Then I looked at it and said, rightio, I said, do you mind me going a little bit further? And they said, what's, because they were really happy with the results on that. And I said, is this going on? I guarantee this is going on in your marriage. And they looked at each other and sort of went, yes. And they're on stage. Anyway, I said, well, I looked at him and I said, do you find that your wife, when you've got something on your mind and everything, goes, your wife just asks too many questions. She wants to know what's going on. You just want to be left alone. You want to, and he said, well, yes. He said, it's too much energy. And I turned around to her and I said, well, it's easy. You've only got two questions and a statement to make. Ask him, is there anything to do with you? If he says no, then ask him, is there anything you can help him with? If he says no, then no, it's no longer asking what's going on, because you're just going to keep pulling away. You're going to have this angst, the arguments that'll come from that. Just say to him, well, I know you need to work on this on your own. I'm going to leave you alone to do that. But when you've got it to where you can fix it, can you come back and see me and tell me about it? Because I care. I said, because if you didn't put that last little bit on, he will just think you're fed up, you're angry, and you're no longer interested. That will then cause further problems. But by adding that last bit, it confirms to him that you're giving him space. The smile on his face was up here. And I went, because he had aesthetic appreciation, she had dramatic appreciation. And it can be the other way around in partners. But, and they can both be aesthetic, and they can be both dramatic appreciation as well. And so I said to him, mate, now it's time to wipe the smile off your face. A bit of giggling around the room. And I said, when your wife is stressed, I said, does she get really upset and goes on and it's too much energy? He says, yes. He said, look, I said, it's not that she's a drama queen, but to you, it comes across that way. And he looked at us sort of out of the corner of his eye. He went, yes. I said, right, you've only got one statement or one question to ask. And I said, that is, it's too double-barreled. Ask her, do you want me to fix this or do you want me to listen? I said, because if she asks you want me to fix it, it's because either you have the ability to fix this thing that came up, or you screwed up in the first place and she wants you to fix that. So you'll know whether it had anything to do with you or not. And I said, and secondly, I said, do you love your wife? He said, yes, I do. And he pronounced that to the whole audience. I said, well, in that case, let's realize it's got nothing to do with you. If you love her, she needs to vent. She needs someone to be the eyes and ears. So just hold a space. And the smile on her face. And they looked at each other with a bit of a twinkle in their eye. And I went, okay, get off stage.
That's hilarious.
But I know that you've got really fine hair, so very, very empathetic, feeling the emotions and everything else of other people. What you've got to do is make sure you don't take their stuff on. But you are finely tuned to be somebody who is a support, a counselor, a guide for other people. Well, if a woman has that, they come across as very soft, and the man will, if he's got coarser, he's got the opposite trait, he will look at her and go, "Oh, that's just a woman's thing. That's women
Yeah.
are a bit much softer." But if the traits are the other way around, and he has the empathetic traits, and she has the more what I call physically insulated traits, she'll look at him and go, "Oh, you're soft." Now, quite often, if she was going through tough times and she needed support, be abused from men, or had men cheat and all that sort of thing, she connects with somebody who's got that empathetic. That's wonderful, because now she's got somebody who understands it. She's got someone to get back to her normal strength with, someone to walk beside her. But as
Mhm.
she gets that back, she now starts talking the way that she used to talk before, which is a bit more robust. She looks at him and goes, "You're soft. What's happened? You've changed." He hasn't changed. Her perception has changed,
Oh,
because we see the upside of the traits, like with the dramatic appreciation. That person's bubbly, they're lively, they're great on stage,
yeah.
in
Yeah.
natural performance. The ascetic person is laid back, always looks comfortable and everything else. The two they will attract because of that opposite attraction. But when they get used to it, now the one with the ascetic appreciation I said before will see the downside of that trait, that drama that comes out when they're stressed. And the other one will see the other one pulling back when they have something on their mind, they've gone quiet, they're no longer laid back. They now see it and say they've changed. They haven't. Our perception changes. That's what people miss. And that's why a lot of marriages break down. If they understood that, just like we said with the aesthetic and the dramatic appreciation, if they knew how to talk on that particular trait level, their marriage would be
Wow.
much better off. If we look at well, this is in the fine hair. You have fine hair, you're more emotionally attuned. I've got fine hair. In fact, mine is baby fine. It's that really thin. I've got plenty of hair, but it's very thin fibers. I was a natural born counselor, connector with people. People would come to me. I'd hear their problems. I used to carry it all around. So I had to learn how to let it go. So I'm a lot more robust than what I used to be.
That
However,
is so funny, Alan, because I used to say that. Why do people just talk to me and tell me things that they don't even know me?
yeah, because you have a lot. If you look at all the traits you have, you've got that adventurous trait, looking at, liking to do new things. You've got the sparkle in your eyes. There's a bit more magnetism there. All the traits are saying you're more approachable, friendly, and etc. And so people will come up to you in a party, and next thing you know, they're telling you a life story.
They do.
And
They
you're
do.
and you're going to sit there and take it in, because you've got that empathetic thing, because you want to help everybody. So now you create a rod for your own back. So if I learned how to, and with the Campfire Project, I hear people telling horrific stories, but after I hear those stories, I can get up and walk away and just get on with what I was doing before,
Right.
because I don't carry the stuff around. But I went through 2 divorces to learn this, because both my wives had coarse hair. They both were going through tough times when I first met them. My second wife had been abused by men. She'd also had a last partner of 10 years cheat on her. And so she came to me. We got together. I was that support for her. So she was always hanging onto my arm wherever we went. And she was much younger than me as well, but which was quite unusual. But the whole thing was that because I had that empathetic, she was able to connect, and she got her strength back. Now she got her strength back, back came her natural way of talking and everything else, and looks at me and goes, you got soft. And
Yeah.
this was before, as I said, this was the last straw before I learned these skills. So that one really stood out when I learned the traits. But if you've got a couple like that, I'll say to the woman, she said, "Oh, he's got soft and everything." I say, "Well, look, forget about that for a moment." Bit of an NLP command there. And I go, "Well, when you're into, in the past, you've had all these issues come up with other men. you reckon that could probably happen to you again in the future? You're not going to be perfect now. You're going to find that those sort of men still exist. They're going to be attracted to you. And she said, yeah, probably. Well, then I'd say, well, look, if that happens, you'll be looking for another man like the partner you've got at the moment, one who's empathetic that you can connect with. Because as you were told me, that was really fantastic when you first met in the relationship you had. So why go through that? Go through the tough times, come back and find a new man that's going to take you through that. Go out and drop him and go find tough times again. Change the way you're talking to him. Realize that he has that empathy, etc. He has not changed. He's still the same person, but because you've got back to your old strengths, you now see him as weaker. So you're in this situation where you're walking behind men, then you're walking in front of them, then you're walking behind them, then you go back to the person who abuses you, who's walking in front of you again. And I go,
Mm.
the end result, if you know how to talk to him, you two will walk through the rest of your life side by side.
Wow, that can be
This, you can see how
so
this
powerful then.
it hits everywhere, and you can see it instantaneously because as you had that conversation, you see the shift in the body language, the micro expressions. You've read their facial features, so you know exactly how you need to talk to them, and then you got the feedback all the way through.
Oh my gosh.
And it's instantaneous in any situation in life. If I can
Oh,
see your
I could
face,
tell even by those questions that you asked of each partner. Like I could see how those questions alone are powerful for so many people.
that's it, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
This is amazing, Al. Like you have so much knowledge that I can see how powerful this would be for so many aspects of our lives, not just as business owners, but as, partners, in our relationships, with our kids, with our parents.
Yeah, see,
Um, yeah.
I look around at as they say, you stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's how you grow. And that's pretty much what I've done. I look at Paul Ekman. He did all the research on the micro expressions. Brilliant man. He did his research in 1969 when he went to Papua New Guinea to the Faray tribe. They had never seen a white man in their life, no radios, no TVs, totally isolated. And it was through them that he worked out the 7 expressions, well, 6 at the time, but added another one to it. It's 7 expressions which are universal. As he explained, it doesn't matter if you've been born in a tribal village, a capital city, blind from birth, doesn't matter. If you feel anger, you'll have angry look on your face. Sadness, you'll have a sad look on your face. That is universal. What causes the anger for you, what causes the anger for me, completely different. So that's cultural side. And this is where the argument was. This is why I got so frustrated with people talking about, personality and character being together. They weren't, they were separate things, but they worked together. The spiritual life and the physical life being separate, your nature and your nurture being separate. No, they all work together. And that's where I looked at his expressions and realized that they tell me what that person's feeling in the moment. I can see by the expression what it is. I don't know what caused it unless I've been around when it actually happened at the time.
Right.
So if
Right.
somebody's got an angry look on their face, you know something's triggered them. But what triggered that person is different to me. So the arguments before so Charles Darwin, when he traveled the world, he said he couldn't understand the language of what people were saying because different dialects, but he could understand their emotions by their expressions.
Right.
Margaret Mead and all the other anthropologists of the day, for 95 years, had virtually said that that was all rubbish. It was all cultural. Well, Paul Ekman proved that there were 7 expressions which were universal. What causes it can be cultural, but the expression itself is universal. Anger is anger.
Yeah.
Same muscles in our faces that pull that angry expression. And so with that, yeah, that's one of the wonderful things when you learn it, especially when you start practicing and pulling the muscles, especially got a mirror there and you're looking at yourself, you have a good laugh anyway. But, but in that, they're universal. So now you know what that person's feeling. And because I can see it immediately and I can see it in the body language, well, Barack Obama is really good at keeping a dead face. He doesn't give anything expression away in his face, but his body gives it away.
Mm.
There's too much going on for us to control everything. We'd go insane if we were, if you tried, because they say in the language side of things, there's 2 million bits of information that we take in every second, but we process about 134 bits.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you look at that, we generalize, we distort, we delete stuff. So there's all that that's being missed. And
But
where
that's
you, and this is one of the ways,
self-preservation. Like you
that's
just
it.
couldn't do it.
Exactly. But back on that little point, I'll come back to the facial of children and reading people. Children are perfect profilers because for them, it's all about survival. It's all about, they're just coming to the world, they know nothing. So
Right.
they're grasping everything they can. They're looking at faces. They know who dad is, who mum is, who people they should be around and who they shouldn't be around as they're growing up. They know how to recognize emotions. And for any parents out who are listening to this who've got young children, how many times do your kids push you to the edge, but don't push you over the edge? They come very close to it. The only time that you may go over the edge is they hadn't picked up that you already were along that pathway when you first came into the room. So other things happen in your life.
Right.
So they're perfect profiles. But as we grow up, we start to get involved in hobbies, sports, going to school, all these other things, and our focus goes elsewhere. And
Right.
so, just like the way we distort and generalize things, the same thing happens here. If you're somebody who is around people all the time, you may maintain the skills a lot longer. You may be able to draw on them more when you're older. But those that get involved in all the other activities aren't practicing anymore. And so later on, well, it's like you're say you're an athlete. You get married, you have your kids, you go to work, you're doing all,
Mm.
raising and all the rest. And one day you look at your body and you go, every
What
little horse
happened?
has now gone south. I need to get that back to where it should be.
Yeah.
And so you go off to the gym. Well, people who are really smart will go and get a personal trainer because you'll get there faster and you'll make sure
Yeah.
that you do it the right way and don't damage your body.
Right.
And when it comes to reading people, I'm really just that personal trainer. I teach you how to get that muscle back. And I can guarantee you haven't lost it completely because how many times have you spoken to somebody? Everything they said sounded right, but you had that gut feeling something was wrong. One or two things. If you haven't recognized that they reminded you of somebody else who'd done the wrong thing by you in the past, then you will behave in that particular way. You'll pull back from them. That then can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But in the other case, if you have picked up the non-verbals, and you go, well, I don't know why, but I don't trust them. It'll be
Yeah.
because you have picked up the non-verbals and there's some problem there. But then the case of where somebody looks very similar to somebody else that done the wrong thing by you in the past, you then pull back from that person. They recognize that because we all pick up the emotions and everything. They then don't trust you. Then next thing you know, we said, I proved you can't trust them. No, you created a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have been judgmental and not judged them correctly.
Hmm.
Two people look very similar. And because it's personality, one could be a saint, one could be a sinner. One's trying to figure out, how do I help everybody? How do I help you achieve in life? Somebody else is, how do I get what I want out of this and damn everybody in the process?
Right.
So this is where this distinguishes the difference between those. It becomes more of a proper scientific judgment as opposed to being judgmental based on our biases.
Wow. This is completely fascinating. Like, it makes me want to dig in and be able to look at everybody. Because I mean, it's not just that it's going to be helpful, but I find it like I would like to just be able to do it. And you have um, provided a wonderful gift for everybody. You have a free gift that is a course. So explain to everybody what this is, because this is really, really lovely of you to
Yeah, well, up
provide
front,
this.
I'll tell you, I put it together as a lead magnet because people needed to have a bit of understanding, wanted to know how the facial features worked, etc. So I created the course. It does talk about some of the people I've worked with so they understand the impact and the power of this, but it also looks at a couple of traits that they can go out and test for themselves. About three or four traits in there. It's a really difficult course. It'll take you 28 minutes from beginning to end.
Oh,
It's 14 little modules. The shortest video is 28 seconds. And so it just shows how some of this stuff can be picked up so quickly and learned so quickly. But the reason I gave that out so people could get an understanding of how the traits work and they go and test it for themselves. Because as when I was growing up, I always been told by my mother and that the proof of the pudding is in the eating, not in the talking of how you put it together and everything else, but the person who eats it, they then know the proof of it. That is this, I can talk forever on this stuff, but how good is it? You don't know until you go and apply it. That's why I
Right.
had to create that for that reason alone. And then also that can give people an idea of, well, what it'd be like to, what the trait, how the traits work. And they go, okay, I want to know more because I'm working with over, well, it's getting it to about 80 traits now. I'm bringing even the shape of the eyes will tell us things about a person. This is where we are looking a little bit at character as far as who might be more cruel, who might be more coercive, who might be just open and totally loyal, etc. So, and then put it with the rest of the traits to work out whether that's true or not. So there's a lot of traits there. We'll look at the body language. We've got the different ways in which we communicate, how to get the yeses, what yeses, etc. to get, how to get the negotiation started properly with getting the no and all the rest of it. And as I said before, when I was talking about Paul Ekman, there's a lot of other great profilers out there like Chase Hughes, Chris Voss, both FBI negotiators, etc. Brilliant stuff. But none of them are looking at the facial features. The facial
Really?
features, because they're all looking at, the indicators. Chris Voss and Chase Hughes were negotiators, hostage negotiators, and things like that. They had to be able to listen and watch to the reactions. They didn't need, if they knew that by having that person's facial features and understanding them to start with, because they came through a psychology field and psychologists were always putting down facial features. So they missed a massive opportunity because that tells you where the base is. Then when you start talking to the person, you know even faster again whether they're telling you the truth or not, because whether they match their personality or they don't match their personality.
Right.
This
Right.
is why I realized that all four of the skills had to be put together. Three on their own weren't enough
Right.
because that was more looking for liars and cheats and things like that. If you've got the first base, you know exactly, you use it everywhere. It's not just finding the lies and the cheats. Because as I say, I use it to, when I read somebody, whether I read them right, whether there's something emotionally going on, whether they're telling the truth. But that last bit, whether they're telling the truth, I don't use as a lie detector. I use it as a truth seeker. I want to know if they're going through tough times and things like that. If I'm doing a sale and I recognize something's going on, they're not really fully connected, why should I continue with the sale? But I'm not just going to get the huff and get off the call. I'm going to say to them, look, I'm recognizing something else is going on here. Let's put this aside for a moment and let's have can I help you? Because then we get into a bit of a conversation. Because I've already started building rapport, they're more likely to open up and start to tell me. We work through it. And at the end, we might have run out of time and I don't finish the sale off. That's okay. Because I know as we get off that call, they're going to be going, geez, Alan spent the time with me. He wasn't just trying to sell. He was really interested. He was concerned. The chances are, in a lot of cases, they'll ring me back up. Or if I send them a message later on, I said, look, we didn't finish the call. We're going to have another shot. The answer usually comes back with an emphatic yes,
Yeah.
because they know that I'm not somebody who's just trying to sell to them. I'm somebody who wants to connect with them.
Yeah.
And I really honed that through the Campfire Project. So what happened was I realized with men in business in particular, didn't know their role at home, didn't know their role at work. I asked them, well, if there was one word to describe your life, a lot of them came back with confused and a lot of them came back with frustrated. And I went, okay, tell us about your home life. Well, especially Gen X and baby boomers, we're all told, go out, bring the resources in and feed the family. And, that was your job, to be away
Yeah.
from the family. That's
Yeah.
how we showed our love to the family, by being absent.
Yeah.
Today in that, we're all being
The
told we're
provider, the
absent.
provider.
Yeah. So we're told we're now absent. We look at it, we can't be in two places at once. If we are home and not going out and providing, that causes problems, because how does the family survive financially? So
Yeah.
we go out to work and then we're not home. We're finding it difficult to find that balance point. At work, with political correctness and gender, all the gender stuff and everything, the men were always trying to do the right thing. They don't want to cause flack. They want to be respectful and everything else. But as they said, today what we can say, tomorrow we can't. The goalposts keep getting moved. There's talk
Right.
now about 120, 112 different genders. This is ludicrous with the stuff we've got out. It's causing so much confusion. And so these men were getting angry at work. So you got bullying at work, going home angry, domestic violence.
Right.
So I
Right.
realized they needed a safe place to talk. It's not a matter of beating them up because, as I said before, if you've got a bully, they were created. They weren't born that way. It's only about 1% of the population that fit into a psychopath role. Sociopaths, they were usually people who went through really traumatic times when they were younger. They were created.
Right.
Psychopaths are born, sociopaths were created. So if we
Interesting.
understood that and we want to break those cycles, we have to have those conversations. So I create the Campfire Project as a safe place for men to be able to come in and tell their stories without judgment, without criticism, without telling they're right, without counselling. Just be the eyes and ears.
Mhm.
Same as that man who then listened to his wife who had dramatic appreciation need to express herself. And I had some horrific stories from men that started opening up and talking. But I never wanted to be a men's group because I've been to men's groups, vital, absolutely necessary for the men to get that feeling of belonging and everything else. But then when they come out, it's like going to a social, a motivational seminar. You come out really happy and everyone tells you it won't work and you're waiting for the next one to go back to again and you become a motivational junkie. And so with this was to break the cycle. So I had women in the group from day one because and I didn't interview the women. I made sure I interviewed only the men to start with because I knew if I interviewed the women, they would open up. You're more gifted at being able to share your emotions. The men would then feel, because we were told to shove it all down. We were bloody
Yeah.
good students. So don't blame us for being good students. So the men started opening up. I brought them into panel discussions. We talked about drugs, alcohol, masturbation, you name it, we covered it. And then the women started sending me personal messages saying, we love these guys. Never heard men talk about their emotions so deeply. We didn't realize they could do it. But what they've been talking about, how to improve society, that's even better again. Can we get involved? And I went, been waiting for it. Beautiful. Brought them into the one-on-ones, brought them into the panel discussions. I brought a young fellow who, when I say young, he's in his getting close to 50 now, and a friend of mine, a lady up in Queensland, a German lady who became co-hosts. They run panel discussions as well. So we've got the old fella, we've got the young guy, and we've got the feminine side as well. So we covered all aspects. But and people can choose who they want to do a one-on-one with, and then come into panel discussions. And we've talked about menstruation, menopause. Does size matter in the bedroom? We've got a full complement of different religions, cultures, genders, identities, etc. We've never had any bigotry, sexism, racism. We have over 600 hours of conversations, getting close to 700 hours now. And we come on the 13th of August. It's our 7-year anniversary. And we've never had
Wow.
nobody has ever been disrespectful to anybody else. And it's a Facebook group. It's a closed group. To get into it, you have to answer 2 questions. Both questions are virtually asking the same thing. Will you respect everyone?
Yeah.
That protects not only the person who is in the group already, but the person coming in knows by answering those questions, everybody else is under the same control. Everybody
Mhm.
respects everybody. The only people who are excluded are people who exclude themselves. If
Right.
they say, no, I can't be respectful because I want to have a shot at people, they exclude themselves. So we are totally inclusive. In fact, if you look at the word inclusion and you look at all the groups out there, if you're like a women's group or a men's group and they say we're inclusive, or all the different gender identities, we're inclusive. But the thing is, they're not fully inclusive. They will be, as they call it, targeted groups, affinity based. So you have an affinity, etc. But you can only talk in a certain way within that affinity group. So they're not inclusive. To be
Right.
inclusive, everybody has to be welcomed in. Everybody has a say. Nobody gets judged. And when I started researching all the different charities or all the different groups out there, I found the top 10. And the top one that ticks all the boxes that none of the others tick fully is the Campfire Project. We have done something that no other group worldwide has done. And we're open to anybody to come and join us. So what I've actually done, because of my passion to help people and connect and actually stop building relationships myself, but help other people build theirs, I created the rapid trait profiling process, which is up there with the leader of the Big Five with psychologists. The Campfire Project, which is above all the others. But out of the Campfire Project, we also created the Business of Smiles. And that's more into the mental health area. We go out, we have conversations in the streets, we're talking to people. So everybody realizes we're all on the mental health scale. But what end of the spectrum are we on? Some
Yeah,
people are on the good end all the time. Others are drifting backwards and forwards, and others are down the far end. If we understand that, we can get rid of the stigma of mental health. And now that 10, the business of smiles comes in as number 6. This is what it all comes down to. This is why I'm so passionate about this, because when we have people connecting at those levels, nobody wants to fight with anybody else.
that's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Such amazing work you are doing and have done already. How do people find you, Alan?
Well, easiest way to find me is by my name, which is Alan Stevens, and the website's .com.au, so alanstevens.com.au, Alan with one L. We didn't have two L's because my family wasn't rich enough for a second L, so we just got the one. Stevens with a V, Stevens. If you
Okay,
look on either Facebook or LinkedIn, just look for Face Reader, and you'll be able to find me
face
there as
reader.
well.
Okay, I'm going to make
Or
sure that all of
reading
that.
faces, I should say, reading faces.
Reading paces. Okay, I'm
Mm.
going to make sure all of that is in the notes. If anybody wants to reach out, please reach out to Alan. Um, it sounds like he wants to share this knowledge with people and have this be something that other people can do as well. Um, as you said, you're trying to make how do you describe it? Create your own competition.
That's right. Create and train my competition, and I
Yeah.
want to make them architects of communication.
Yeah, yeah. So if anybody's interested in learning more about how to do this or the campfire project, or just have a chat with Alan because
Yep.
it's fascinating stuff. And you know what? Maybe it just will help your business. Make sure you jump in and take his short course that can just open the doors a bit more. I know I'm going to. So thank you so much, Alan, for joining us. This has been amazing. I've learned so much. I really appreciate you spending the time and getting
My
up
pleasure.
so early.
Always my pleasure. Love it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time in the Employee to Entrepreneur Society. Bye for now.